Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the weekly walkthrough with Alex and Graham. I'm Alex, and the other guy on the screen here, that's Graham, in case you didn't pick up on that by now. Hopefully, you have. We've done this for a while. But welcome back to another edition. It is championship weekend, and we got a good one on our hands, the first ever Battle of the Bricks for a MAC championship. Graham, welcome back. How excited are you for this weekend?
I mean, it's got to be super exciting, right? I mean, we spent a year talking about some MAC football and getting really excited about it through these walkthroughs. We actually covered this game earlier in the year, this Battle of the Bricks, and we talked about how exciting it was to have the 100th Battle of the Bricks, the 100th meeting between these two teams. And how wild is it that the 101st meeting is actually more exciting than the 100th meeting?
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? There's a lot of history with this game, of course. Miami owns a 56-42-2 overall record lead. So they've got quite a few games on the Bobcats here, but I mean, let's just dive into this. We've gotten some questions on Twitter. We're going to do this one right. We're going to give you guys the information you want. Got some questions on Twitter. One question even asking who's going to win and how many points are the Bobcats going to win by? Well, Graham, I think we can talk about that, right? There's a great opportunity for the Bobcats to win their first championship since 1968. They were in this game just 2 years ago against Toledo, where they lost 17-7 in a defensive slugfest. Last year, Miami won the MAC championship against that same Toledo Rockets team. So what's incredible is we've seen a different pairing of the MAC championship game the last 3 years, and all three of those teams that I just mentioned have been in this game twice. Pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen a share of Miami win one. We've seen Toledo win one, and maybe now it's time for the Bobcats to win one of these things.
Should be exciting. So let's just dive into it. Talk to me a little bit about these Bobcats. Obviously, I think both of these teams are in a much different place than they were the first time they met up. But talk to me about these Bobcats.
Well, I wanted to get into the game itself first. This is
Sure.
this is the MAC championship game. We've got it at Ford Field, which of course is inside. Neither of these teams have played inside yet this year. That'll be interesting dynamic to see. This game is on Saturday, December 7th. It's at noon. It's on ESPN. Make sure you check it out there. But really, these are two teams who represent different sides of the MAC. We have this Miami team who's been so successful recently, especially due to their defense. They've led by Matt Salopek, who I'm sure you're going to talk about in just a second. But this is a defense under Chuck Martin that has in recent years been so disciplined. They show up every game, and it's kind of, especially against conference foes, this vaunted defense that's hard to go against. Meanwhile, the Bobcats have had an excellent offense this year,
Mhm.
led by Parker Navarro, and really, I think that's going to be the story of the game is which unit can step up. You would think an indoor game would favor the offense, but we saw this last year with Toledo, who had the better offense coming into the game, getting stymied by this Redhawks defense. I think it's going to be a great matchup. When we get into Ohio here, and I mean, let's talk about these Bobcats. This is a team who has been good, not great in the conference for so long. We talked about the last time they won a MAC championship, 1968. That's before we even had a MAC championship game. And this is an Ohio team who consistently gets great home crowds, great backing from the fans, and somehow has not been able to turn that into MAC championships. Come Tim Albin, he's been here for 4 years. He's last 3 seasons, he's won at least 9 games, and he's in his second MAC championship in 3 years. It's the kind of team that I think these Ohio Bobcats fans have been looking for a long time. And it's a chance for them to really come out and say, yeah, we lost to Miami earlier this year. By the way, Ohio's only conference loss to this Miami team. And it's a way to say that, like, this Tim Albin team has in 4 years he's been probably the best coach in the MAC. I know that's a little controversial to say, but in his 4 years with Ohio, he's 32-19. And when we remember that these MAC coaches play these early season non-conference games against oftentimes juggernauts.
Mhm.
We can see that 32-19 is really impressive there, especially when we've had this Toledo run, where we've had teams in the MAC who've been really, really good in the conference. I think this Ohio team is ready for a championship, and a lot of it has to do with Tim Albin.
Tim Albin's been an excellent coach. You mentioned how long he's been there. If he wins this weekend or the bowl game, that'll be 10 win seasons. He's done 3 times in his 4 years as the head coach. So, I mean, again, just named today, this week, actually. Tim Albin was named MAC Coach of the Year, which, if you know anything about what the Bobcats have done and what they went through in the offseason, you know that it's well deserved. Losing 25 guys to graduate or to just transfers, I believe. Lost a bunch of guys to transfers. And then, so transfers, graduation. So you lost a good chunk of your roster. Then you bring in a bunch of guys out of the transfer portal, guys who aren't in your culture. He adjusted them to the culture, got them fit, got them ready to go. And they've been on a tear ever since that Miami game. So Tim Allen, hats off to him. This is the second time he's won MAC Coach of the Year in the last 4 years. So I think you're onto something with Tim Albin. Conversely, Chuck Martin, who's been a staple, one of the longest tenured coaches in the Mid-American Conference. He, Chris Creighton out of Eastern, and Jason Candle are the 3 longest tenured coaches in this conference. And he resurrected a Miami program that was, well, frankly, dead to rights. He brought in this I don't care attitude. And you see that reflected quite often in his interviews that he puts on. It's humorous if you're not the one asking the question. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And so it's just, but he's just got this no nonsense sort of attitude, and he's all business, and I kind of love that in a coach like Chuck Martin. And then when he does have a moment of laughter, it's always funny to watch. Just 2 years ago when they beat Cincinnati, he made a comment about, I was told when you beat a Big 10 or Big 12 team on the road, you're supposed to get $1 million check. So I hope that's on the AD's office on Monday morning. So just funny stuff like that, because he understands the game of football. He understands what's on the line being at a Miami, being at a MAC school. And he's won a couple championships, won it back in 19, won it in 22. And then now looking to win it again, or won it in 23 rather, now looking to win it again in 24. And all 3 of those championships have 2 common denominators, Graham. 1, Chuck Martin. 2, Brett Gabbert, the million-year marathon man for the Miami Redhawks, who was looking to graduate last year and wrap up his career. That injury that we saw live kind of delayed that a little bit. And now he's back for his 7th year, looking to win a championship and go out on top the way he came in, on top as a MAC champion.
Yeah, I mean, this will be. I think this is Gabbert's 51st start as the MAC championship game as a quarterback, and kind of incredible that he's had that many starts for the Redhawks here. This would be Miami's first back-to-back MAC championship since the 70s, and also only the 4th team since the MAC championship game to have won back-to-back MAC championships. So a little bit of history for Miami on the line here. I think it's interesting. This game opened -1.5 in favor of the Redhawks. It's still there, -1.5. And that's about as close a line as you're going to see in these championship games this weekend. I don't know who to pick here, Alex. I mean, this is a kind of matchup between rival. We talk about these rivalry matchups. You can kind of throw stuff out the window. It's a kind of rivalry matchup. We had Ohio losing this game early this season, 20-30, is in favor of the Redhawks. We also have Miami's loss, also kind of surprisingly, 20-30 to the Rockets, a team that Ohio beat. So it's a kind of mix and match between these teams as to who shows up. Ohio, to me, has looked more impressive recently, whereas Miami seems like a more consistent season, even despite their early season stumblings. We kind of expect those early season stumblings in the MAC.
Mhm.
I got to say, my big takeaway here, it's Parker Navarro. He's, we're talking about Gabbert on the other side, but Parker Navarro has led this Bobcats team he has 1,900 yards throwing. He has 10 touchdowns. He also has 876 yards on the ground and 13 touchdowns. Is a guy who can make it happen through the air. He can make it happen with his feet. We saw him face adversity, especially in that Toledo game, where he came out and said, "That's enough, and let's play some ball." In that cold and really just kind of windy, not great environment for football,
Mhm.
Parker Navarro takes over. And when we watched him um, against Ball State last week, this is a team who knows how to get it done when it's time to get it done. He showed up. This is heavily favored Bobcats team against Ball State last week, and they came out and they just did the work. You could see how easy it would be to stumble there in kind of a trap game at the end of the year. And Navarro comes out. He plays well enough. He earns MAC Offensive Player of the Week. And who else shares that title with him but Brett Gabbert on the other side of the ball? So kind of fun to see how closely matched these teams are. Both quarterbacks winning MAC Offensive Player of the Week in the week leading up to the MAC championship. Another thing about this Bobcats team, I can't stop harping on this offense. They're scoring 28 and a half points a game, 394, almost 400 yards of total offense. Only 183 yards through the air, which is interesting, but they are picking up 210 on the ground. One of the best metrics in the MAC in terms of rushing yards per game, and that's both due to Parker Navarro's legs, but also especially that's graduate student running back Anthony Tyus, who has 184 carries, 960 yards, closing in on that 1,000-yard season, and 9 touchdowns total. That's 8 rushing and 1 receiving touchdown for Anthony Tyus. This is a team who has multiple weapons. Team who can rush the ball, who can put the ball in the end zone, whether it's from Navarro's arm or his legs, Tyus's legs. Coleman Owen leads the team with 10 or 1,032 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's only the third Bobcat ever to have 1,000-yard receiving season, and he's already there. He's within spitting distance of that second place. He takes first place. He would need the first place is held by Levon Brazil, who has 1,146 yards in 2011. Coleman Owen, who knows? A great game from him in this MAC championship game. Maybe we're seeing it a new career leader for the Bobcats in terms of receiving. It's these weapons that the Bobcats have that I think the Miami defense, as good as they are, is going to have a hard time slowing down.
Well, I think it's interesting you talk about this offense, right? I mean, this is a very, very incredible offense that the Bobcats put on the field. But I want to point out in terms of passing offense, you mentioned it. Parker Navarro has led a great passing offense. There's actually Miami who ranks higher in the Mid American Conference in passing offense. Miami's 5th in the MAC in passing offense at 227 yards per game. Brett Gabbert actually, when you pull up the numbers, Brett Gabbert actually sits here at 217 yards a game himself. He sits at 5th in the Mid American Conference in total. QBR, just so many metrics. He has 21 touchdowns on the year, just 10 interceptions, which I say just in the MAC, especially when you play those juggernaut non-conference games, your chances of throwing interceptions go up. Let's just call it what it is, right? But I think, in terms of QB rating, he's throwing the ball 30 times a game. Brett Gabbert, who for all of his veteran experience, he's finally played a full healthy season, and he started to come on a little bit late. It's one of those early we saw him struggle. We saw him struggle against Toledo, and then they started ripping off wins. They're on a 7-game win streak right now, in part due to the great defense, which I'll get to in a minute. But I don't think you can count out Brett Gabbert and just how incredible his leadership has been. But then we go down the list. You talk about rushers in the conference this year. Anthony Tyus has done a great job, but right behind him in the Mid-American Conference, Keon Mosey out of Miami, Ohio. He has 1,045 yards, 4 touchdowns, And he's rushed the ball for 159 times. He's actually one of the better in terms of average yards per carry, sitting there at 6.57 yards a carry. And he's rushing the ball almost 14, 15 times a game, 87 yards a contest. That's really big right now. Now, to Ohio's credit, they've got three of the top 5 rushers in three of the top 10 rushers in the Mid American Conference. But I think that you cannot count out Keon Mosey and what he's been able to do. But then we look down here at the receivers, and this is where Brett Gabbert is blessed with his riches of receivers. We've talked about Cade McDonald before and the numbers that he's put up, almost 600 yards this year, which isn't stellar, but when you've got this many mouths to feed, and Cade McDonald is the third best receiver for Miami. You've got Javon Tracy. He's got 760 yards. You've got Reggie Virgil. He's got 787 yards. All of these guys have combined for 20 touchdowns. And then you go down a little bit further, Kevin Davis. He's a running back, and he's got 218 yards. He's got a couple touchdowns. I mean, this Miami offense is loaded with receiving talent. And I think it's important to not discount what this offense has done. Yeah, they're not knocking down the doors in terms of being the best offense in the Mid-American Conference, but they're an effective and they're an efficient offense. And I think that's going to be key against an Ohio defense who, to their credit, is a pretty good defense.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing here is we talk about strengths. You want to talk about this Miami passing game. You know, of course, led by Brett Gabbert, who can find receivers, can find open receivers in a way that experienced quarterbacks do. He makes the reads, he finds the open guy, and I think that explains why we have so many Miami receivers who are getting the ball to him. We don't have 1,000-yard receiver at Miami like we do at with the Bobcats, because Brett Gabbert is spreading the ball out so well that that these guys don't have quite as much opportunity to be hyper targeted the way Coleman Owen is for the Bobcats. You know, we talk about the highest number of receptions on the team when it comes to Miami is Javon Tracy, who has 50 receptions. Compare that to Coleman Owen, who has 62 receptions. That's 12 extra receptions. That's an entire extra game that Coleman Owen gets to play compared to Javon Tracy there. When we talk about the defense, you know, we talked about this kind of vaunted Miami defense. The Bobcats are no slouch on defense either. They're only allowing 18.7 points per game, 305 total yards per game allowed, is slightly better than Miami's mark of 309 total yards allowed. Only 207 yards through the air allowed, but the big thing here is only 98 rushing yards allowed per game. This is the Ohio Bobcats are holding their opponents to under 100 yards per game on the ground. Keon Mosey, you talked about earlier, has been great, especially in the conference in terms of rushing yards. If the Bobcats can keep him under wraps, it's going to really turn this into a one-dimensional offense for Miami. Now, we talked about Brett Gabbert can spread the ball out to guys. Turning this into a passing game might not be the worst thing for the Miami offense, but it does make that Miami offense far more one-dimensional if the Bobcats can shut them down on defense. When we talk about the defense for the Bobcats, who we're talking about mostly is Blake Leak, who tops the team with 76 tackles. Bradley Waver, also second on the team, or second in the MAC rather, with 8 sacks. So this is a Bobcats defense with a couple of studs, and but really it's a team defense that makes things happen. They are good at stopping the run, and they're good at putting pressure on the quarterback. Where they are a little bit iffy is in that secondary. We'll see if Brett Gabbert can pick them apart. I think what's going to be the story of the game is, can the Bobcats control the ball on offense and not give Brett Gabbert that time of possession and let the Miami offense create those scoring opportunities that they need. When we talk about Parker Navarro and Anthony Tyus on the ground, these are guys who can keep the ball in their hands. They can extend drives. They can keep drives going for a long time and keep the ball out of the opposing offense's hands. I think that's the matchup we want to watch here.
I think it's interesting you mentioned briefly that time of possession thing. The Bobcats actually led in time of possession the last two times these teams met. They had about 40 seconds more, so it's not like it was any significant number. But when you look at that game, Ohio didn't even score until the second half in that game. And then Keon Mosey, he had 111 yards in that contest. The Bobcats are limiting teams to under 100 yards. Keon Mosey himself had 111, and then Miami ran for 150 in that contest, that 30-20 win down there in Oxford. But I think to that point, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, and you start listening guys off, you've got Bradley Weaver, who's done an excellent job, the junior defensive end, and then you've got so many fantastic Ohio Bobcats. I would like to bring up three names for you. I think you know who I'm going to talk about. Matt Salopek, Eli Blakey, Silas Walters. These three are three of the top 15 tacklers in the Mid-American Conference. Matt Salopek is 5. Shout out, by the way, to Sean Dolock for winning MAC Defensive Player of the Year. Again, those awards were announced today. You can check those out on the MAC website.
And well deserved. The guy was racking up tackles like nobody's business. That Buffalo defense was just producing tackles.
Yeah. So shout out to Sean Dolock. But Matt Salopek, one of the best tacklers, one of the elite tacklers in the Mid-American Conference. He has 52 solo tackles. He has 106 total tackles.
And another guy who's been with Miami for about 1,000 years now.
Correct. I mean, you take what you can get. But Blake Leak, Dustin Johnson for Ohio have done great this year. Corbin Hondro, another Miami defender that you have to talk about, the junior linebacker. He's got 49 assisted tackles. He has 64 tackles on the year. And this is a tackle heavy Redhawks defense. One of the best defenses in the Mid-American Conference consistently. In fact, when you look at defensive numbers, and as I was looking this up, I was pretty blown away. Both Miami and Ohio defensively are consistently in the top 3 in most major statistical categories. The big one that I kind of look at is the passing defense. Ohio gives up more yards per game. They've given up 15 touchdowns through the air. To Miami's 7 touchdowns through the air. Miami has 11 picks versus Ohio's 9 picks per contest or on the season. But then also Miami, their turnover margin, it's positive. And that's huge for the Redhawks. Ohio has a minus 0.25 turnover margin. The Redhawks, of course, have a 0.33 to the positive. So about a half a point swing there. But that half-point swing can mean a lot in a high-stakes game like this. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was penalties. Everybody wants to look at, they're 4-8 in the conference. When you actually look at it, Miami has 65 penalties. Ohio has 66. So this penalty, like if whoever I think can play the cleanest game penalty-wise is going to have a huge, huge advantage because penalties are drive killers. And when you've got high flying offenses such as the Ohio Bobcats or a relatively high flying offense such as the Miami Redhawks, any time that you move backwards is a drive killer, especially if you have a lot of momentum on your side. So I think penalties, while they both have about 5.5 penalties a contest, you want to keep an eye on just who's going to do more with what in terms of taking advantage of penalties for your opponent and, trying to limit those mistakes on your side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I think normally you'd be right when we talk about penalties being a big game changer. Just like normally you'd be right when we talk about turnovers being a big game changer in these kind of games. But the fact of the matter is both of these teams pretty good keeping the ball in their hands, not turning the ball over a lot. Also, both of the teams very good in terms of discipline, not getting that many penalties a game. You talked about only 5.5 penalties per game for both of these teams. I don't know that penalties are going to come into play here. And you're right. It might come down to one big moment, one big turnover, one big penalty that kills a drive. because these teams are so evenly matched. I mentioned earlier that the spread in this game was only 1.5 points. This is basically an even spread. Miami gets the advantage here, I think, because of the history of them being in this title game most recently, having played these bigger games. But the Bobcats have been right here 2 years ago. So this is not a Bobcats team who is not aware of kind of the heaviness that these championship games bring. It might come down to just 1 or 2 plays. That's how closely matched these teams are. It's interesting, the different dynamics. You talked about both of these defenses ranked in the top 5 in the MAC in most statistical categories. These offenses similarly ranked in the top 10. When we talk about passing offense, Miami is at the very top of the MAC. I think they're second in the MAC in terms of passing. When we talk about rushing offense, that's the Bobcats offense is first in the MAC in rushing. And so that's the kind of thing when we talk about how close these teams are. Miami probably has a slightly better defense. Ohio probably has a slightly better offense, but these are very similar, very balanced teams. We should be seeing some good football on Saturday.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a fantastic game. If history indicates anything, the Redhawks are on a 2-game win streak against the Bobcats. They obviously won at Peden Stadium last year, and then this year they won there down in Oxford. The biggest stat I'm looking at, and again, these teams have changed over the course of this season. Bobcats on a 5-game win streak, Redhawks on a 7-game win streak. Parker Navarro was benched in that game in Oxford. He was benched after throwing 2 picks, had his worst day he's had as a quarterback for the Bobcats. I don't know what we're going to see on that front, but I think if the Miami defense can harass him enough and you can force him to make those mistakes that, frankly, I think cost the Bobcats that game a year or 6 weeks ago now. It's which is crazy to say. I want to say a year ago, but no, it's only been 6 weeks. I think if you can force Parker Navarro into those same mistakes or to similar mistakes, this is a defense that will capitalize and take advantage of. Similarly, I think if Ohio can force this Miami defense into bad positions, this is a good offense. This is one of the best scoring offenses in the MAC. They sit number 1 in total offense in the MAC. It could be a big one, a big day for Tim Albin to paint it green and white, to borrow a phrase from many a radio call at Ohio, and for the Bobcats to finally, after a long drought, stand up and cheer a 56-year drought for a MAC championship. So there could be a chance for them to stand up and cheer, but it could be a chance for Miami to establish their dominance as the school in the Mid-American Conference. Miami has a winning record against every school in the Mid-American Conference. They are historically the best program in the Mid-American Conference. Winning another MAC championship helps solidify that and builds on that legacy.
Well, I think let's get into it. So we have these Twitter questions. We got into the first one. You mentioned it. That question being who is going to win and how many points is Ohio going to beat Miami by? Well, I'm happy to answer that question in full earnestness. For me, I have this one very similar game, but working in the opposite way. I think this is going to be 31-20 in favor of the Bobcats.
All right, so you're going Bobcats. I'm getting my officially pulled out of Ohio email as we speak, but I'm going Miami. And I'm going this defense. I mean, this defense has been so good, and I think they're going to limit Ohio to even less points. It feels like Ohio got a late garbage time touchdown in that last game, and I feel like that's not going to happen this time. I feel like they're going to clamp down, and this is going to be a Redhawks victory. I'm going 24-10.
24-10 for Alex. That's not going to happen because it's going to be a Bobcats victory. But let's.
You guys will see Graham stand up and cheer over there in Akron.
That's
the
right.
Bobcats win.
Let's move on to our next Twitter question.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on this a little bit. Miami's been successful recently. Why hasn't Coach Martin been asked to go to bigger programs? That's a great question. I think when you look at the history of Miami football, and kind of the dark days they were in prior to Coach Martin. You see what he had to do to kind of rebuild and resurrect this thing, and now he's consistently at the top of the Mid American Conference. The question is, I don't know. I think that he's a good coach. I think what we've seen though in the last couple of years is we've seen coaches from the Mid American Conference get called away after incredible seasons. This will be a good season for Miami. If they win the MAC championship, 8-5, go win your bowl game, 9-5. But the incredible seasons, PJ Fleck after their Cotton Bowl run with Western Michigan, that's the most recent example. Matt Campbell, he's over at Iowa State now, and he had an incredible year at Toledo prior to leaving when they beat 2 Power 5 programs in Iowa State and Arkansas.
I think what you're seeing there is that these kind of big acquisitions from the MAC in terms of coaching, both of those happened about 10 years ago. That's when these coaching acquisitions happened, and things have changed since then. With the advent of the transfer portal, with the advent of NIL, MAC coaches are getting picked up less frequently by larger programs, and they're certainly not being offered these head coaching gigs. Remember, Chuck Martin's done his time. He was at Notre Dame in those early Brian Kelly years for Notre Dame. He was part of that team that went to the national championship in 2012. He's been the offensive coordinator at these big programs. I don't think he wants to take a step backwards. And those are the kind of jobs that are being offered to MAC head coaches now, are offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator positions. And I don't know that Chuck Martin wants to take a step backwards. You talked about he's kind of this serious business-like guy. We watch his press conferences, and we see this guy who likes to take command. We see that on the field with the Redhawks. I don't know that Chuck Martin wants to give up control there. I also think he's found a home at Miami, and staying there for 11 years so far. I think at this point in Chuck Martin's career, it would take something big to move him from Miami, and that's just not happening so much in the MAC anymore. This used to be a conference where it was kind of the development league for big time coaches, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And I know you and I, when we have these conversations, we like to blame the transfer portal. We like to blame NIL. And I certainly think it does have a lot to do with that. But there's plenty of other things that are going on here with the rise of these super conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC. These Power Four sort of coaching jobs have become even more valuable. And because of that, these administrations, they're less willing to take a chance on a coach coming out of the MAC. So you would need to do something pretty incredible in the MAC to get that nod to go directly to a head coaching gig there. And I think that's hard to do. I mean, when we talk about Chuck Martin, his resume, before Miami was Grand Valley State, where he won a couple of national championships in Division II. That his Grand Valley State teams only ever lost. The worst they did in a season was 2004. They lost 2 games. And so sorry, they lost 3 games. But that's the kind of differences we're talking about. These Grand Valley State teams in Division II are losing single digits every year, winning a couple of national championships. That gets him the nod to move to Notre Dame. He coaches quarterbacks and DBs, and he eventually the offensive coordinator over there, and does a great job. At least those early Brian Kelly teams helps them to go to that national championship in 2012. Then he gets the call from Miami. And he's working at Miami, and you talk about this. This is the dark days of Miami. He starts out his first year with the Redhawks. He's 2-10, and he's climbing out of that hole. He finally makes it, qualifying for a bowl in 2016. He fights his way up to a MAC championship in 2019. Of course, we have the COVID season in 2020 that we kind of all throw out the window. We don't count there. But he did go 2-1. In that season, so that's more wins than losses.
Single
and then
digit
that
loss that year.
and then that MAC championship last year. But this has been a transformative kind of program under Chuck Martin, and one that has not been explosive the way I think these Power Four programs look to pull head coaches.
Well, and I think I just to kind of tack onto that a little bit, we saw Lance Leipold go from Buffalo pretty recently over to Kansas after I want to say it was the 2020 season. He gets the call to go to Kansas, but that's really the last one. And like you said, I mean, Kansas that's kind of, it feels like one of those jobs where it's like, wolf, good luck. It's
Right.
they're
Similar
not
Matt
the
Campbell
Ohio States of the world.
Similar to Matt Campbell going to an Iowa State team who hadn't won 6 games in forever, and so yeah, I mean those are the kind of jobs that seem like might be available to MAC coaches now, and I don't know if that's the kind of job that's going to pull Chuck Martin from his life in Miami.
That's fair. All right, so we'll move on to this final question down here. How would we update the trajectory of either team based on a win? For Ohio, does it mean now the Bobcats are an annual favorite under Tim Albin for as long as he's in Athens? And then for Miami, does this kind of act as the jumping off point towards chasing a college football playoff berth down the line? I guess I'll start here. It's for me, yes. The answer is yes to both. I think it does offer, Miami, you now win back-to-back conference championships. And you're looking for things, but I think you have to temper expectations. This is a senior laden team with a lot of, multi senior year veteran talent who I expect we will see, depending on how things work in the portal and whatnot. But I expect that we'll see Miami take a little bit of a step back next year. This is my way too early 2025 prediction, but I think that this could act as that jumping off point. You win, you constantly win. Recruits want to play for winners. That's simple day one, basic understanding of recruiting. Teams or players like to go play at a place that they like to have an opportunity to win. So I think if you're Miami, yes, this serves as an opportunity for you to start chasing that college football playoff bid. That bid that a lot of us thought they might have made a push for this year. Didn't work out that way. But I think when you're Miami, this is a huge jumping off point. Conversely, when you're Ohio, Tim Albin wins the conference championship this weekend. He never has to buy dinner in Athens ever again. But I think it does speak to the testament of what Tim Albin's done, because you have to keep in mind, yes, he's been the head coach the last couple of years, but he was there under Frank Solich for a long time. He is serving as one of his coordinators and one of his assistants. So he understands the culture in Athens. He understands the people of Athens, and they understand him. That's why I think they were so welcoming to him. It didn't hurt that he won 10 games his first year, but I think that's why they were so welcoming to him, because he took what Frank Solich built, the winningest coach in Mid-American Conference history, and kept building on it, found other ways to continue to improve. And now they're looking at their third 10-win season in the last 4 years. I think this is huge. And this leaves Ohio as a perennial favorite in the Mid-American Conference. He lost 25 guys to the transfer portal last year. And now they're knocking on the door of a MAC championship. If that doesn't say they should be considered a relative favorite every year, I don't know what does, because this is what Tim Albin has done.
Yeah, I mean, you hit all the points. I think the easier question to answer here is, does a win for Ohio mean that Tim Albin, while Tim Albin is in town, is this Ohio team a favorite in the conference? Yes, absolutely yes. I mean, Tim Albin, I think even if they lose, honestly, Tim Albin has proven that he can take these Ohio teams. Maybe the last question you have to answer is, can he win the big game? And losing to Miami this year, maybe that says maybe he can't, and this would overturn that. I don't buy it. I don't buy the argument that Tim Albin can't win the big game, as it were. I think this is a well-coached Bobcats team. You're right. Tim Albin has been in town for a long time now, and he's been the head coach here for 4 years, and under his actual leadership. Once he took control of the program, the Bobcats haven't looked bad once. And so this is a team who's certainly, in my mind, already favorites. That you got to look at them as a team who's going to finish towards the top of the MAC every year while Tim Albin is in charge. As far as the Miami side goes, if Chuck Martin wins this back-to-back MAC championships, is this a step on the road? What would say a jumping off point towards chasing down a college football berth? No, no. I want to say yes, right? I mean this is certainly a step towards that. But we've seen the landscape this year. We've seen the way the MAC has been treated in the past, and we see the way the MAC is treated even in this 12-team playoff. If you want to get in as a group of 5 school, you have to be extraordinary. And Chuck Martin, at least in his time at Miami, has never been an undefeated type season kind of coach. And that's what it's going to take for someone from the MAC to get into that conversation. And if we want to get in there without those types of undefeated seasons, we need to have back-to-back undefeated seasons. We need to have the type of seasons where your only loss comes to the Oregons of the world. It's got to be the type of season where we're not losing to teams in conference at all. And really, I don't see, at least in this iteration of the college football playoff, I don't see room for multiple MAC teams up there. It's got to be one dominant school in the conference. And the way this conference beats up on itself makes me hard to see that. I don't really see that opportunity here. So no, I don't think a win for Miami sets them up for a college football playoff berth. It certainly is a step on the way. And if we saw them win back-to-back MAC championships, and then we saw them go on to have these one or ideally no loss seasons, maybe that's the key. If Chuck Martin sticks around for a long time and we can see that, okay, now these Chuck Martin teams are winning year after year after year, I think that makes a stronger argument. But long term, I don't think we're going to look back at this and say this was the turning point that got Miami into the playoff. I think it's just going to take an extraordinary season to get there.
That's fair. We're going to head to our conference championship roundup here. But before that, I wanted to ask you guys about the Varsity Podcast app. And have you guys checked that out yet? This app's free to download in the Apple Store, Google Play Store, wherever you download your mobile phone apps. You can listen live to all your favorite Division I college teams' calls, basketball, football, softball, baseball, whatever. You listen to it through your favorite for your favorite team, rather. You check out all the calls from all the voices across the MAC, the Big Ten, whatever conference you may be. This app has it. Presented by Learfield, of course. You can sign in. You can save your favorite teams, your favorite sports. You can also find hundreds of great podcasts that I'm very honored to be named amongst, including that of the Group of Five Guys, the Sickos Committee podcast, and more, as well as individualized school podcast. Your official school podcast by the voices of your schools are available through this app as well. So make sure you guys download that today. It's free. Start listening to the calls and podcast of your favorite Mid-American Conference teams. Graham, are you ready? It's championship weekend. We've got 10 games. We've talked about one. We're going to rapid fire these last 9 here. Just making sure you're sticking with that Ohio prediction.
Yeah, you bet. These Bobcats are gonna win one for the Tim Albin. I don't think that's a phrase, but I'm making it one.
It's all right. I'm going to win one for the Tim Albin. All right, so we'll start with the Friday matchups. We've got Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State. That's for the Conference USA Championship. Graham, who you got in that one?
Western Kentucky has not impressed me this year. I've got Jacksonville State.
All right, Jacksonville State it is. Arguably the most intriguing Group of Five championship. Number 20 UNLV at number 10 Boise State for the Mountain West Championship, and honestly, probably the Group of Five bid to the college football playoffs. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, certainly that's what's on the line here. The UNLV has looked good all season despite their NIL controversy, and it's a team who started out with big hopes and kind of had them dashed early, and they've somehow climbed back into the conversation. I think that's intriguing. But this Boise State team and Ashton Jeanty are they're too good. They're too good. They've looked good even in their big games this year. They've had a couple of stumbles, but really they've looked like a strong team. And I think Boise State deserves this number 10 ranking right now, and they deserve a spot in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to let it pass by. This is a Boise State win.
Getting it at home is definitely super beneficial to Boise State right now. Moving on, we've got Tulane versus number 24 Army in the AAC championship. A little bit of buzz about if Army can win this one. There's a chance we could be looking at 2 G5 champions, depending on how things shake out. This is at Army, so this is at West Point up in New York. Who do you like in this one, Graham?
Well, I think Tulane has been the better team all year long. They stumbled lately, but I think Tulane has been the better team. Army has had a good season, and just as a Group of 5 fan, I would love to see 2 Group of 5 teams sneak into the playoff. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Army is close enough to make that strike, and certainly Tulane lost that chance recently. I'm going with Tulane in this one.
Going with Tulane. All right. I dig it. Yeah, Tulane's sitting at 9-3, of course. Moving on to the Saturday slate. We've already talked about the VMAC championship. Let's talk about another former MAC coach. We've got Iowa State at Arizona State, number 16 Iowa State at number 15 Arizona State for the Big 12 championship in Arlington, Texas. I'm really excited about this one.
I talked about earlier with it that 1.5 point spread is the closest in any championship game this weekend. The Arizona State is favoring this game by -2. So this is almost as close. As you said, these teams are ranked back to back, 15 and 16. Iowa State looked so good this year, and then a stumble about a month ago is the thing that hurt them. But they've climbed back into it. I don't think Matt Campbell lets this Iowa State team get away easy. I don't think they're gonna go down easy. Arizona State is favored in this game, but give me the Cyclones. You know I'm going to pick Matt Campbell.
The Fighting Matt Campbells, and yeah, I mean I'm right there with you. Got to cheer for the former Matt guy. Again, so moving on, we've got the SEC championship, Georgia at Texas, but it's a home game for Georgia, which kind of bugs me a little bit. But Texas maybe stay in the Big 12 if you want a home game for the conference championship. But who you like? Number 5 Georgia at number 2 Texas.
Texas looks so good this year, and I mean, hard to argue that the Longhorns you shouldn't be favorites in this one. But I'll point out their one loss in the season comes to who? These Georgia Bulldogs. Yep. I think Texas, they looked human in that game against Georgia. They didn't look like a team who is going to compete for a national championship. They got scared by Vanderbilt the next week, and then after that, they stepped up. I think this is Texas all the way, despite the fact that Georgia had their number earlier this year. I think the Longhorns pull it out, and Texas wraps up that number 2 spot.
All right, moving on, we've got Marshall at Louisiana for the Sun Belt Championship. UL by -6. Who you like in this one, Graham?
Well, I think the Ragin' Cajuns have been the better team all year. They've looked good, and my head tells me that the Ragin' Cajuns are going to win this one. But I'm going with the former MAC Marshall. Thundering Herd win this one.
Moving on to the Big Ten Championship, Penn State, number 3 Penn State at number 1 Oregon. Almost assuredly, the winner of this locks up the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs. And when I say almost assuredly, I don't know that they would put Penn State number 1, but I think you'd have to. Penn State, Oregon.
A Penn State win and a Texas win, I think puts Penn State at number 2 in the country. But certainly this is a game where the winner could be the number 1 seed in the playoff. Oregon has looked like the better team all year. They had that game against Ohio State that they won, and that game was very close. Of course, we don't apply the transitive property here, but Ohio State looked like the much better team against Penn State earlier this year. So I've got the Ducks in this one. I think this is an Oregon victory.
First year Ducks winning the Big Ten. Moving on to the final game of the year, the final conference game of the year. Clemson at Southern Methodist for the ACC championship. Southern Methodist, who, by the way, was a group of 5 school a year ago, sitting at number 8 in the country, and looking at making the college football playoffs as a Power 4 program. Who you like in this one, Graham?
Well, as much as I like the chaos of Clemson winning and the committee scrambling to figure out how to fit both Clemson and SMU into the playoff, I do think that makes it harder for the group of 5 to get multiple representatives into the playoff. So I'm going to go with SMU just because my head and my heart align in this one, and I don't want to see Clemson take that spot away from a deserving Ohio Bobcats team.
I dig it. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning into the final weekly walkthrough with Alex and Graham of the 2024 college football season. We'll probably do some bowl game stuff, talk to you guys about some bowl games. We already have a couple destinations planned out, picked. But make sure you guys, if you can't make the trip to Detroit, tune in on Saturday. You'll be listening to this on Friday. So tune in tomorrow to the MAC Championship on ESPN up there at Ford Field. Kickoff at noon. Make sure you guys checking that out. And if you can, go to Detroit. Go be there.
Oh, yeah.
Please be there.
That's Alex and I have been a few times to these MAC Championship games, both as fans and as media members, and it's always a blast. And I guarantee you there'll be seats. There'll be plenty of seats at Ford Field. So don't feel like it's too late to get tickets. Get yourself some tickets. Get up to Detroit. Enjoy some of the. I actually recommend the local barbecue in Detroit. I think that's delicious. But get up to Detroit and watch this game. Cheer on your team, and even if you don't have a team in the MAC Championship, cheer on the Bobcats. And let's get up to Detroit.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the MAC Championship.